Spring cleaning is a myth for seniors. The truth? Summer is the secret season that protects your health, saves money, and keeps you independent after 60. For decades, most of us have been told that spring is the natural time to declutter, open the windows, air out the house, and start fresh. But here's the truth nobody talks about. After 60, that tradition can work against you. Chilly mornings stiffen your joints, slippery steps and damp garages increase your risk of falls, and the rush to get it all done in one burst can leave you exhausted for weeks. That's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous when your health and safety matter more than ever. Summer, however, changes everything. Longer daylight hours mean more energy and better visibility. Warm air keeps your body flexible, reducing stiffness that slows you down in spring. Safer, dry conditions make it easier to carry boxes, clear closets, and move through your home without fear of slipping. And beyond the physical side, summer unlocks financial and emotional benefits, from peak garage sale season in the US to memory-filled moments with family as you uncover treasures from years gone by. So why has no one told you this before? Because traditions rarely adapt to the real needs of seniors today. But you don't have to keep following outdated rules. Hit subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear could change the way you see your home and your future. Meet Clara James, a 68-year-old retired schoolteacher from Ohio who spent most of her adult life living by the calendar tradition everyone around her seemed to follow: spring cleaning. Each March, like clockwork, Clara would haul out boxes from the attic, drag winter rugs to the porch, and attempt to reorganize her closets before the weather turned warm. It was what her mother did, what her neighbors still did, and what she thought she was supposed to do. But what people didn't see were the hidden costs Clara was paying for holding on to that ritual. The damp chill of Ohio's early spring mornings left her knees aching before she even started. The uneven ground in her garage became slick from rain, and more than once she caught herself wobbling under the weight of a cardboard box. One year, she slipped badly enough on a damp concrete floor that she had to sit for 10 minutes, heart pounding, wondering if she'd broken something. She didn't tell anyone, she was embarrassed, but it left her shaken. Clara began to dread the arrival of spring. The very season that was supposed to symbolize new beginnings instead became a source of stress, fatigue, and quiet fear. She loved her home, but she started to feel as if her clutter was winning. Even when she pushed herself through the exhausting marathon of sorting and cleaning, she often felt too drained to enjoy the results. And as she got older, the recovery time stretched longer. What had once been a sense of pride turned into a yearly burden. Then, something unexpected happened. One July afternoon, Clara was helping a neighbor set up for a summer yard sale. The sun was warm, her joints felt looser, and the natural light pouring into her garage made it easier to see what she was sorting. Without even planning it, she began organizing some of her own boxes. To her surprise, it felt different, easier, lighter, even enjoyable. She didn't feel rushed or cold, and she wasn't afraid of slipping. That day opened her eyes. Maybe the problem wasn't her age, but the season she was choosing. That realization changed everything. Clara started tackling her home in summer instead of spring, and the difference was remarkable. She discovered she had more stamina, fewer safety risks, and even more emotional connection to the process. What started as a small shift became a new way of living, and it's the reason she now swears by summer decluttering. Clara's story is what sparked these 7 surprising reasons why seniors should start in summer, not spring. Reason 1. Summer gives seniors more energy and better light. Clara used to wonder why spring cleaning always left her drained. Every March she'd wake up, pull on a sweater, and force herself to tackle closets and boxes while the air was still chilly and the skies outside were gray. Within an hour, her knees ached, her fingers felt stiff, and she found herself constantly squinting in dim corners of her house. She thought this exhaustion was just part of getting older, something she had to accept. But she was wrong. When Clara shifted her efforts into summer, the difference was dramatic. She woke up to longer days filled with natural sunlight pouring into her home. Instead of flipping on harsh overhead bulbs, she could see clearly in her kitchen, closets, and basement simply because of the bright summer light. For someone in her late 60s, that mattered. Vision changes with age, and poor lighting can make any task frustrating or even unsafe. But in summer, Clara could read labels, sort small items, and organize paperwork without straining her eyes. That small shift alone made her feel less tired and more capable. The warmth of the season worked in her favor too. In spring, the damp air left her body tense before she even started, as if she was fighting against herself. But in July, the gentle heat loosened her joints naturally. Her hands and knees felt more flexible, her movement smoother, and her stamina lasted longer. What used to feel like a chore that took all day now felt like something she could break into simple, manageable sessions. She no longer dreaded getting up and moving around her house. Instead, she looked forward to the light and energy that summer seemed to give her. There's also a hidden emotional boost that comes with summer energy. Clara realized that her mood was better. Instead of sighing heavily as she pulled out boxes in the gloom of spring, she caught herself humming while working in the sunshine. That shift in attitude was just as important as the physical benefits. Because decluttering isn't only about removing items, it's about having the right mindset to make decisions without regret. Summer gave her that clarity. At 68, Clara realized it wasn't age slowing her down, it was the season she was choosing. And once she changed her timing, she felt younger, stronger, and more in control of her home than she had in years. Do you feel more alive in summer mornings than in spring? Let us know in the comments. Reason 2. Safer home conditions in summer. Clara couldn't shake the memory of that spring afternoon a few years back when she nearly lost her footing in the garage. The rain had been falling all morning, soaking her shoes as she carried a heavy box from the closet to the driveway. The concrete floor was slick, the air damp, and her vision clouded by the dim light of the overcast sky. One wrong step, and she slipped, arms flailing, barely catching herself on a shelf before hitting the ground. For a moment she froze, heart racing, realizing how easily it could have been a broken hip or wrist. At 68, that thought haunted her. A simple slip could mean surgery, rehab, or worse, the loss of independence she valued most. That scare stayed with Clara. And when she began decluttering in summer, she understood how much the season itself shaped her safety. By July, her garage floor was dry and stable underfoot. The sunshine streamed through the windows, filling corners that once seemed dark and dangerous. Without bulky coats or wet shoes, her body moved with far more balance and control. What had once been a high-risk activity suddenly became smooth and almost effortless. She wasn't just cleaning her house, she was protecting herself from hidden dangers. Seniors in the United States know that falls are not minor events. A single accident can change everything: hospital stays, medical bills, and months of recovery that strip away the confidence to live independently. Many people think installing rails or using mobility aids are the only solutions, but Clara discovered something simpler: timing. By waiting for the season that naturally reduced risks, she had already won half the battle. Dry sidewalks, safer steps, and clear visibility turned summer into the safest time to move, sort, and carry. And safety wasn't only physical, it was emotional. Clara no longer carried that anxious feeling in her chest every time she lifted a box or stepped outside. Instead of fear, she felt calm and in control. She realized that creating a safer environment wasn't just about hardware and equipment, it was about choosing the right moment to act. That decision gave her confidence, and confidence gave her freedom. Decluttering in summer meant Clara could finally focus on the task itself, not the dangers surrounding it. What once felt like a gamble now felt like security, and that changed the way she lived in her home. Clara realized safety wasn't just about grab bars or rails, it was about choosing the right moment to act. Reason 3. Summer decluttering awakens memories. Clara had always dreaded opening old storage trunks. For years, the thought of sorting through piles of forgotten objects felt heavy, as if every item would remind her of things she had lost or years that had passed too quickly. But one golden July afternoon, something shifted. She pulled out a faded trunk from the corner of her attic and lifted the lid, bracing herself for the wave of regret she usually felt. Instead, what she found made her smile. Inside were picnic blankets from family outings, colorful beach towels worn soft from summers by the lake, and a dented cooler that had traveled with them on countless barbecues. These weren't just objects, they were chapters of her life. She could almost hear the squeals of her children splashing in the water, taste the sweet corn grilled on summer evenings, and feel the sand between her toes from vacations long gone. For the first time in years, decluttering didn't feel like saying goodbye. It felt like reconnecting. Clara decided not to keep these moments to herself. She called her grandchildren into the room and began sharing the stories tied to each item. The picnic blanket wasn't just fabric, it was the place where their parents once sat eating sandwiches after swimming. The cooler wasn't just plastic, it was the container of lemonade she'd carried on long road trips. As the children listened wide-eyed, the process transformed. What might have been a lonely task turned into laughter, storytelling, and even legacy building. That's the secret summer holds. The items we encounter during this season are often tied to joy, sunshine, and togetherness. Winter coats might remind you of long nights or struggles with cold, but a pair of swim fins brings back adventure. A grill pan recalls community cookouts rather than clutter. Instead of feeling guilty for holding on to too much, Clara felt lighthearted, because these objects were tied to happiness rather than loss. Decluttering in summer gave her permission to reframe the process. It wasn't about erasing the past but about honoring it and choosing which memories to carry forward. And once the stories were told, she found it easier to let go. The objects had done their job, they had sparked connection. Passing them on to others no longer felt like giving something up, but like freeing space for new experiences. For Clara, summer decluttering was more than organizing a home. It became a ritual of remembering, celebrating, and sharing. And in that process, she discovered that her memories didn't live in the objects, they lived in her heart, where no clutter could bury them. What summer item brings back your happiest memory? Share it below, I'd love to hear it. Reason 4. Summer opens the door to extra income. Clara never imagined her clutter could turn into opportunity. For years she thought of old dishes, furniture, and boxes of unused clothes as little more than a nuisance taking up space. But one July, her neighborhood association announced a community-wide garage sale. At first, she hesitated. The thought of hauling items outside and sitting in the sun all day didn't sound appealing. Yet something in her nudged her forward. Why not try? On the morning of the sale, Clara laid out boxes of books, framed prints, a set of extra chairs she hadn't used in over a decade, and even a small collection of costume jewelry. To her surprise, by mid-morning the tables were thinning. Neighbors stopped by, strangers struck up conversations, and one young couple eagerly bought her dining chairs, excited to give them new life in their first apartment. By the end of the day, Clara had made several $100s. It wasn't just the cash that left her smiling, it was the realization that items collecting dust in her home still had value to someone else. In the United States, summer is peak season for reselling. Yard sales flourish under clear skies, community swap meets pop up in towns both large and small, and online reselling platforms buzz with activity as people search for bargains during vacation season. For seniors, this timing is powerful. Instead of simply discarding belongings, summer provides the perfect stage to convert clutter into practical financial help. Extra income can go toward medical bills, home improvements, or something as meaningful as a family trip. Clara used her earnings to cover the costs of a reunion picnic that brought her children and grandchildren together, something she wouldn't have said yes to before. The emotional payoff went far deeper than the dollars. Clara described the feeling as freedom. Selling those items gave her the ability to say yes when she wanted to, instead of no out of worry. She no longer felt burdened by things she wasn't using, and the money she earned turned into memories she could treasure. Each item that left her driveway carried away more than clutter, it carried away limitations. And for seniors everywhere, this truth holds steady. Decluttering in summer isn't just about creating space in your home. It's about creating room in your budget and your life. The season gives you a chance to release the weight of unused possessions while gaining the flexibility to enjoy the years ahead. For Clara, this wasn't just money. It was freedom, the chance to say yes instead of no. Reason 5. Community connection blooms in summer. When Clara first began decluttering in summer, she assumed it was a private task, something she'd do quietly at home, just her and the boxes. But one July, her church announced a donation drive for gently used books, clothing, and household items. Clara gathered a stack of novels she had read years ago, thinking it would be a small, almost invisible contribution. She dropped them off with little expectation. Yet that simple act became the doorway to something she didn't even realize she was missing: connection. The woman collecting donations struck up a conversation and invited Clara to a new summer reading circle that was forming at the church. Clara hesitated at first. She had been spending most evenings alone, filling her time with television or the occasional phone call to her children. But she decided to go, just once. That decision changed her summer. At the reading circle, Clara found herself surrounded by people her age who shared stories, laughter, and companionship. The books she had once seen as clutter became tickets to friendships. Over coffee and discussion, she built bonds that eased the quiet loneliness that had crept into her days after retirement. Suddenly, decluttering wasn't just about removing excess, it was about opening doors she hadn't realized were closed. Summer, with its fairs, community drives, neighborhood sales, and donation events, provides a natural backdrop for connection. Unlike the isolating cold of winter or the damp unpredictability of spring, summer brings people outdoors. Seniors who use this season to let go of belongings often discover unexpected opportunities to meet others. A bag of clothes dropped at a community center can lead to a volunteer invitation. A box of tools donated at a local shelter can spark conversations with neighbors. These small exchanges ripple outward, turning a solitary task into a communal experience. For Clara, this shift was profound. What began as clearing shelves became a path toward belonging. She no longer saw decluttering as something she had to do, but as something she could share. Each item she parted with wasn't just leaving her home, it was finding a new story in someone else's hands. And along the way, she was building her own new chapter filled with connection and support. Decluttering in summer gave Clara more than a cleaner home. It gave her friends, conversations, and a community that cared. Seniors often underestimate this benefit, but sometimes the most valuable thing you gain by letting go of clutter isn't space, it's people. Reason 6. A natural health boost. Clara never thought of decluttering as exercise. For most of her life, the word exercise meant treadmills, weights, or workout classes she didn't particularly enjoy. But one July morning, as she moved between rooms carrying books, lifting boxes, and bending to reach the bottom of her closet, she realized something surprising. Her body felt alive in a way it hadn't during spring cleaning. The warmth in the air loosened her muscles, the sunlight gave her motivation, and the tasks that once felt like chores turned into natural movement that benefited her health without her even noticing. Doctors often remind seniors in the US that regular activity is crucial after 60, yet many struggle to keep up with rigid exercise routines. Clara discovered that summer decluttering gave her the exact kind of low-impact, practical activity her body needed. Carrying a stack of blankets strengthened her arms. Sorting items on shelves worked her back and shoulders. Walking from room to room, up and down the stairs, kept her heart rate steady like a gentle cardio workout. Even stretching to reach high cabinets or crouching to pull out boxes gave her flexibility training without the sterile feel of a gym session. But the health benefits went beyond movement. Decluttering itself reduced stress. A cluttered home had once left Clara restless, her mind buzzing with the weight of unfinished business. When she cleared her space, her stress hormone levels eased, and her sleep improved. On nights after long summer sorting sessions, she noticed her body sinking into deeper rest. Her blood pressure, which had been creeping upward during her years of high stress, began to stabilize. She felt calmer, lighter, and more balanced, not just in her home, but in her body. And this wasn't just about physical health. Clara realized the act of clearing space brought a mental boost too. As she let go of unnecessary items, she experienced fewer distractions and a stronger sense of peace. That emotional clarity carried into her daily life, giving her focus and improving her mood. For a senior navigating retirement years, these benefits mattered as much as the physical ones. What stood out most was that she hadn't set out to work out. She wasn't counting steps or pushing herself to meet a number. Instead, the natural rhythm of decluttering in summer gave her activity that was productive, safe, and meaningful. She didn't just feel healthier, she felt purposeful. Clara's blood pressure improved, and her nights grew deeper and more restful in a home that finally felt light and free. But there's still one final reason, and it may be the most important of all. Reason 7. Independence that lasts. By her third summer of decluttering, Clara finally saw what the real reward was. Yes, her closets were lighter, her garage safer, and her living room more inviting, but the deeper change was the way she felt about herself in her own home. What had once been a maze of stacked boxes, overstuffed drawers, and risky walkways was now a space she could move through freely, without hesitation or fear. She no longer paused before carrying laundry down the hall. She no longer shuffled sideways through a crowded storage room. Her home was no longer an obstacle course, it was a place that supported her life. For seniors in the United States, this shift matters more than most people realize. Studies show that one of the leading fears among older adults is losing independence, needing to rely on family members or moving into assisted living before they are ready. Clara had felt that fear too. Every time she stumbled in her garage or struggled to reach an item buried in a closet, a quiet voice whispered, "What if one day you can't do this on your own?" That voice had weighed heavily on her for years. But after embracing summer decluttering, that fear was replaced with confidence. Clara didn't just clear out things she didn't need, she cleared away barriers to her freedom. She created open pathways, organized shelves within easy reach, and kept only the belongings that truly served her daily life. Now, if she wanted to cook a meal, she didn't have to dig through cluttered cabinets. If she wanted to welcome her grandchildren, her living room had space for them to play. Her environment matched her abilities, instead of working against them. The independence went beyond physical ease. It gave her the mental reassurance that she was still in charge of her life. She didn't need to wait for her children to rescue her from a clutter problem. She didn't need to apologize for the state of her home when visitors came. And she didn't have to face the possibility of leaving her beloved house earlier than she wished because it was too unsafe or unmanageable. By choosing the right season to declutter, she gave herself more years of comfort, dignity, and choice. For Clara, the greatest gift of summer decluttering wasn't just space, it was freedom. The freedom to live without fear of tripping over piles, the freedom to welcome others into her home with pride, and the freedom to know she could continue living independently on her own terms. For seniors in America, independence is priceless. And sometimes, all it takes is choosing the right season to protect it. Looking back, Clara's journey wasn't about simply switching from spring to summer. It was about unlocking a lifestyle that supported her rather than drained her. She discovered that timing mattered just as much as effort. By waiting for summer, she uncovered energy she thought she had lost, discovered safer conditions she never considered, and found a fresh perspective on what her home meant to her. Decluttering was no longer a burden tied to obligation, it became a season of renewal, empowerment, and choice. Her story proves that summer decluttering is about far more than organizing shelves. It's about 7 pillars of well-being: energy to move without pain, safety that protects against preventable accidents, memories that spark joy rather than guilt, money that creates possibilities, community that fills lonely spaces, health that strengthens body and mind, and freedom that ensures independence lasts. Each of these reasons builds on the other, forming a foundation that allows seniors to thrive in their own homes. Clara often says that the biggest change wasn't in her garage, her closets, or even her attic, it was in her confidence. She no longer dreads the cycle of spring cleaning that left her exhausted. Instead, she looks forward to summer as her season of growth, where clearing clutter feels aligned with her body, her spirit, and her life. It's proof that sometimes the smallest shift, the choice of when, can bring the most powerful results. And this isn't just Clara's truth, it's a lesson for every senior watching right now. Traditions like spring cleaning may have worked when we were younger, but life after 60 requires wisdom, not just habit. You deserve to work with the season that gives you strength, clarity, and safety. Don't let old traditions hold you back. Summer is the season that works with your body, not against it. Which of these 7 reasons spoke to you most? Comment below, I read every one. And if this gave you a new way to see your home, hit like, share with a friend over 60, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, because your freedom deserves the right season.